Okay, well, welcome. This is conversation number 3 in an 8-part series. I'm Jan Spencer, and I'm coming to you from Eugene, Oregon. And we have a very, very interesting conversation planned here today with members of the Onondaga Earth Corps from Syracuse, New York. And what I would like to do here is share this screen. So we have this to look at. Well, yeah, okay, we'll do that. So first of all, we have Yvonne Chu and we have Tay Stenson, and they're both involved with Onondaga Earth Corps. I'd like to just read you a little short sentence from the Onondaga Earth Corps website that's a mission statement for Onondaga Earth Corps, so you'll know more what this is about. The Onondaga Earth Corps intends to empower youth to be active participants in creating positive change for bringing about sustainable communities and healthy natural environment through service, social enterprise, and outreach. That sounds pretty good to me. So I'll do a little brief intro for both Yvonne and Tay, and then I'm going to ask them to say a little bit more about themselves. I'll first read a little bit about both of them, and then they'll say a little bit more about themselves. Yvonne Chu is a local climate and community activist based in Syracuse with a background in environmental organizations. She volunteers uh, with local grassroots organizations such as Climate Change Awareness and Action and the Sustainable Economies Alliance. And she's also the office manager for Onondaga Earth Corps. And Tay Stenson joined Onondaga Earth Corps as a youth crew member in 2016 and is now OEC's advanced young adult crew leader. And he'll describe some of his responsibilities and also how Onondaga Earth Corps has contributed an enormous amount to his life as well. So, okay, first I'm going to ask Tay. We are looking at a Google image of Syracuse, New York. So Tay, could you just describe to us just a little bit of Syracuse, maybe a little bit of the economy, a little bit of its past, some of its challenges, some of its assets? Go ahead.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. So, as you can see, based upon this outline of the map, Syracuse is broken into four quadrants. We have our northeast, our uh, excuse me about it, our like north. It's like northeast, southwest, and excuse me, really quickly. Okay, so southwest, southeast, and then northwest, northeast. Excuse me. Um, I'll give a little background just to kind of give the history of Syracuse. Syracuse started to really boom back in the early 1800s off of like salt and chemical industries. And as you guys can see in the top left hand corner, there is that pretty, decent sized body of water called Onondaga Lake. So along the edges of those sides is where a lot of our chemical and manufacturing factories were, and that led to a huge demise of the health of Onondaga Lake. So over the past couple of decades, we have been trying to put efforts into cleaning it back up to get it back to its or closer to its natural state. Um, so with the city being broken up into the four different quadrants, each quadrant has like its own little bit of flavor, I would say, and its own little bit of like gem. there are a lot of hidden gems within Syracuse, and I would advise any of those who may come up to the Central New York area to visit some of the places here. But ultimately, um, the population is like just shy of, I think, of 143,000 people. So it's not, you know, big. It's not huge. Not quite suburban. You know, not quite rural, but definitely not a metropolis. It's kind of in the middle. Short, you know, commute times is perfect to me, perfect for me. And one thing that I do like about it is just that um, there are so many different tastes of like cultural backgrounds within Syracuse. And so it becomes like a melting pot. And then there are different sections like our downtown Syracuse that you know, also just recently put a big new Salt City marketplace downtown, trying to bring more life back to it, bring it a little more urban with the business. Um, there is like some great opportunities for great things here. And so just as a little background of Syracuse, um we have great scenic views. I do love the fact that we get to enjoy four seasons. So you know, in the summer, while it can be a little, you know, humid, it's not uh terrible. And we are in the midst of our winter season now, and we do get quite a bit of snow due to some of the lake effects and things of that nature. But nonetheless, we still keep it pushing and still keep going. So uh, I just to some of that, I would say that that is kind of Syracuse. We do have some great museums, as you can see, the Emerson Museum, the Erie Canal Museum. You can get to know a lot of our history, and we also have a salt museum. As I said, the salt business here back in the early 1800s was really booming. So we are also known as the Salt City. And I guess you can say with all the snow that we get, we still carry that name just off of all of the salt that we have to drop during our winter time. But yes, I would
Okay.
say that if you guys have any time to come up here, especially during our fall season, please do.
All right, very good. Thanks, Tay. And let me mention also that after we have our conversation, we will admit everybody into the collective conversation mode. We can ask follow-up questions. We can have some conversation, see where people are from, comments. So when we're done with our more formal conversation, we can have everybody a chance to kind of mix and mingle just a little bit. That's fun. Okay, let's switch to this picture here. And I'm going to ask Yvonne to explain this picture and how this picture relates to Onondaga Earth Corps and a little bit of history of the Onondaga Earth Corps.
Sure. So the Onondaga Earth Corps is it started as a really small group, and it initially came about with the help of the Gifford Foundation, and they had recruited Eli Mcdonald, who's actually on the left of this photo, just in front of the red truck there. He's the founder of the organization, and before the Onondaga Earth Corps became the Onondaga Earth Corps, it was actually called the Eli Mcdonald Green Team. And Eli, he lived in the community and had been, you know, doing a lot of work with the Dunbar Association, which is another group that's in Syracuse. And he helped bring the young people. I'm not sure if it's this group exactly, but other young people in the area together to do landscaping work. And initially, it was mostly just landscaping work for folks' homes who may need you know, assistance with doing their landscaping, like their front yards and cleaning up the neighborhoods and stuff like that. So that's kind of how it started at the beginning. But as the projects went on, a lot of people noticed how much good it was doing in the neighborhoods, and they wanted to help continue the growth of this group. Eventually, it became the Onondaga Earth Corps, which is now a nonprofit organization. And it has grown from just a handful of people, walking lawnmowers and, shovels and stuff around the neighborhood to having a small fleet. It's not a huge fleet, it's just a small fleet, but we're able to do a lot more projects throughout the city. And the crew members don't necessarily have to walk to every job site anymore. Sometimes they still do, but not always. And we also went from a handful of people into upwards of a few dozen, and now we're somewhere in the realm of, this past year we had about 60 youth and young adult crew members during our summer season. We do work seasonally. The winter time is very slow. There's not a ton of work that we have going on during the winter time, but during the spring, summer, and fall, it's pretty busy. We've got a lot of things going on. There's a lot of plants growing. There's a lot of maintenance that needs to be done, and so on. So that's just a short history of the Onondaga Earth Corps.
Yeah, that's great, Yvonne. And we're going to take a closer look at some of the projects shortly, but we'll go into a little bit more detail about current news at Onondaga Earth Corps. So at this point, I would like to bring up this picture here, and then I would like to ask Yvonne just to describe a little bit of what her responsibilities are. What do you do at Onondaga Earth Corps, Yvonne?
So my name's Yvonne. I've been working with the Onondaga Earth Corps since about 2018, but I've been a volunteer with the Onondaga Earth Corps for a few years before. Pretty much since I moved to Syracuse, I've been in contact with the Onondaga Earth Corps in some way, from other volunteers and just recognizing the work that they've been doing in the area. It was pretty easy to pick them out as a group that would be fun to volunteer with. But my responsibilities now, I've moved from volunteer to staff, so that was fun. And that I'm now the office manager for the organization. The organization was looking for somebody to help out with their administrative work. And so that's kind of what I've taken on now. And one of the main focuses of being an office manager is to try and help the folks who are working there max out kind of their abilities so that you can help them, bring on more crew members and overall expand the organization itself. Kind of churning the little nuts and bolts to make sure everything's working okay in the background, making sure all of our paperwork is in check, and helping folks out to make sure that they don't have to stress too much about some small things, but can help them out so that they can do their field work. So that's just a little bit of what I would do. Another part of my job is to kind of help get the word out about what we do. The organization itself, everybody's very busy trying to do the good work that the organization does, and we'll talk more about that as we talk about the projects. But I feel that Onondaga Earth Corps deserves as much publicity and attention as they can possibly get, because it's very, very impressive the amount of work that can be done by young people. And I personally do not think that we should ever underestimate people who are young. we should encourage them and allow them to take the initiative, be empowered, learn how to work well with other people, and then move forward and move on as they grow up and they get older. So I would like for Onondaga Earth Corps to get the attention that they deserve. And so part of my work is contacting other people, making sure that there is some light on the work that's being done, and then hopefully the young people in our program, but maybe other places, are interested in this work, and they get to learn a lot more about what we do. So that's just a short bit, just a tiny bit of what I do in the office, but it's one of the bigger parts of it.
Very good. That's great, Yvonne. I would just kind of guess that you have a lot of enthusiasm for the Onondaga Earth Corps. That's great. Okay, Tay, you have a very good story in regard to the Onondaga Earth Corps. Tell us what you do, but tell us a little bit about how this has been so important in your own life.
Yes. So I joined Onondaga Earth Corps back in the summer of 2016. And as mentioned earlier, I did start as a youth crew member. So I started kind of at the base of the program. And I noticed, within going through the program, uh, it really pushes you to get out of your comfort zone. It really pushes you to do the, unthinkable. It pushes you to do the things that you just really don't want to do at all. Um, and I also noticed, a whole nother realm within, my everyday life, things in which I've never paid attention to, like even just the trees outside of my home. Um, and so with that, um, it pushed me to be like, hey, this is something that I really, really, really miss. This is something that I could get into. And so I wanted to further my progress within the program. I wanted to push myself to then kind of just elevate throughout the program. And so in the fall of 2017, that's when I came back to the program. And at that point, I was a young adult member. And then after that, I said, you know what? I do have the opportunity to continue on for the next however amount of years as a crew member, but I want to be a staff member. I want to be the people who, you know, our crew members are definitely leaders, but I wanted to also just push myself in my own personal life to, you know, my next step of greatness. And so in um, the following beginning of 2018, I actually was able to do an internship for our city's arborist, Steve Harris. Is a partner who I met in the year of 2017. And I was very grateful for that opportunity. And then leading from that into the spring of 2018, that's where I've gotten into the position in which I am in now as crew leader of our advanced young adult group. And that was also the beginning of us establishing that program. And so our advanced young adult program basically is another tier, another layer that consists of graduates from our young adult program. Our young adults must complete at least 3 to 4 seasons as a young adult member. And if they show that they are interested in furthering themselves into this, type of work, they have some type of interest, whether it may be to be on a landscaping crew, whether it may be to, start their own business doing this type of thing. We wanted to give them an extra opportunity to, you know, get get a hold of themselves and get on to the next thing. And so we specialize basically in structural tree pruning. So we go back and we maintain the trees that were planted by other OEC members um, that are probably about 5 to 6 years old at that point in time. So we get to see the growth. Myself, I planted some of the trees and have watched them grow, and then are then able to maintain them so that they are able to live a healthy life and withstand our storms and with whatever other kind of natures. And so like that, I oversee a group of anywhere, depends on our graduates that are there at the moment in time, but I would say anywhere from 1 to about 5 crew members um, per season. And it's not just about the field work and helping them to understand kind of like the labor stuff, but also to assisting them however I can in their personal journey from a personal development standpoint. So if that may be support in helping them to um, save money that they're trying to save, whatever type of financial literacy, or to establish their first vehicle, whatever it may be. I assist them, or we, I should say we, it's not just I. Um, we assist them hand in hand on top of the day-to-day tasks.
Sure. So that's an important point to make is, of course, as Tay was just describing, this just isn't learning how to prune trees and plant trees and do other types of important conservation work. It's personal development. That's great. So anything else, Tay?
Nope, that is all.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's do this. And then we are going to do this. And we're going to go back to Yvonne. And Yvonne, you touched on but waited until now. Tell us a little bit about the type of outreach OEC does and what kind of programs, what are the offerings?
Yeah, so we have multiple kind of programs within the organization itself. Generally, we talk about the youth program, which is youth from the ages of 15 to 18 years old, and then we have our young adult program, which is the ages of 19 to 25. And then within the young adult program, we actually do hire AmeriCorps members as well to work with us. So AmeriCorps is also part of the programming that we have. This was a flyer from last year. We actually have one that is out for this spring, and we are actively currently looking for recruits at this moment. So we've been hosting a bunch of open house events to kind of explain what we do. And some of that information is actually listed here, the Explore Careers in Landscape and Forestry, down at the bottom of this flyer. Some of that will be accessible in terms of training, probably not for the spring season, but maybe again later in the year. But that's part of what we do is introduce the crew members to the possibility of careers in landscaping and forestry and other green types of green work. So the program itself mostly is just seasonal from spring through fall. Occasionally we will have a limited number of crew members that might work during the winter time. And that would be like one of our crew member, young adult crew members who's working with Tay with pruning during the winter time. But it's very limited during the winter time. Otherwise, spring, summer, fall, we start recruiting. Most of the recruiting happens by word of mouth. And lately, social media, because word of mouth is not as common these days for reasons. But it helps a lot to have the recruiting done by past members because they are most likely to have access to the groups of people that we are looking for in those age ranges. There's nothing better than recruitment by our crew members itself because it's your friends and you can tell them how much you enjoyed, hopefully, the program and then tell them about all the things that you learned and what it meant. So it's a really awesome way to do recruiting. And I know Tay's done a lot of it and a lot of our other staff members have too. But definitely word of mouth from our crew members itself is a very effective way to bring on more young people from the community, especially the community that we are planted in. So it's a very exciting times. If you guys do know other people who are interested, I know there's some Syracuse folks here that might be interested in working with us. We are looking right now, and we're hoping that we can bring on quite a lot of folks during this spring, but throughout the rest of the year as well.
Okay, that's great, Yvonne. And once again, when we finish with this part of the conversation, you can follow up with Yvonne and Tay also. And I want to do a quick shout out because I just had a quick look at who is joining us this evening. And I would like to recognize that Jeff Parker, who is the executive director of the Northwest Youth Corps here in Eugene, is also with us. And I'm hoping that Jeff can stay with us afterwards too, because he's been with Northwest Youth Corps, I'm guessing 10 or 15 years, maybe more. I don't know exactly, but I had a conversation with Jeff just a few days ago about some of these similar issues. And welcome, Jeff, because your organization is a little bit larger and we can hear more about that perhaps later too. Okay, so let's return to Tay. And what we want to do now is have a little bit of a show and tell of just what are, let's see, I need to, um, well, I'm just trying to get a picture up here. Let's see, just hang on. What we're going to do is, jeez, why is that doing that like that? Okay, okay, I think we'll get it this time. And then we do this, and then we do this. Okay, so maybe this is a little bit of a small picture here. Hope you can see it.
Yes.
So what we'd like to hear from you, Tay, is just describe to us a little bit what we're looking at. And in the process of doing that, what are some of the challenges? What are some of the good stories? What are some of the consequences for the community? We'll take a look at about maybe 4 images of different projects from OEC around Syracuse. What's going on here?
Okay. So this is actually taking place at an organization of ours that we work, not of ours, but a partner of ours that we work with really close, Peace Inc. And one thing that we are very, 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 very passionate about is that partnership, connectivity, and also, reaching more people through other people. And so here we're just working with a small, group of children. And a lot of times we work with people from ages of as young as 5, as old as 70, as long as, they can get out and they're ready, to have, a great time. But here, basically this probably was on like a Saturday, and I can see the gentleman in the vest looks like he was a part of our youth crew. So this actually looks like this was a project that took place with our youth group. And the Peace Inc. has some raised beds that they sometimes place vegetation in. So we just try to give some type of educational um, help and, some type of activity where we just, have fun with the kids, teach them stuff, give them, you know, outside active things to do. I'm not that old. I'm only I'll be 24 this year, but the generation this year is definitely or these times are definitely even more into their technology than like people my age. But we just aim to try to get people out and active and to just make them aware of some of the resources that are in our very own communities. And so that is pretty much what we're doing here is just getting them hip to growing their own foods, understanding the difference between healthy natural raw foods versus like your processed snacks and things of that nature. Don't get me wrong, I'm guilty, have a guilty pleasure also in some of those things, but we also like to flip the coin sometimes.
We won't tell anybody that. Okay, yeah, so that's a little bit of lifestyle and healthy type of advocacy. Okay, so let's then take a look at this picture here. What's going on with this picture here? What's happening here, Tay?
Yes. So this looks like this is outreach that is happening during, this is a quite old picture, by the way. But this looks like this was door-to-door outreach that was happening during our winter season. As Yvonne mentioned, we're not active doing most of the projects that we would typically do during the winter time just because of the climate. Um, And so basically, this is one of the things that we do leading up to our tree planting seasons, which typically take place in the spring and in the fall. And a bulk of our door to door and even over the phone outreach will happen in the summertime, but we try to make efforts at all time, as well as Yvonne mentioned, recruiting for our upcoming seasons. And so that is what is happening here. Um, the gentleman in the gray jacket, he was actually um, one of my AYA members just a couple of years ago. So he's still around. We're still in touch. But yes, that is what is happening here. And this actually looks like this is on the north side of Syracuse, right at a recreational center that I am familiar with myself.
Ah,
So
sure. Back here, I can see the sign here. Yeah.
yes, Mtesney.
Okay, good. And then here is a picture you'll certainly recognize.
Yes, yes, yes. So this actually took place in the summer of last year, the summer that just passed. Um, our youth crew members had and even our young adults, excuse me, had the opportunity to kayak down a portion of our creek, Onondaga Creek, just to get an idea of one, the exposure um, to, like I said, the same resources that are in our everyday community that while we notice from afar, we don't take the time to really, or we may not take the time to get up close to them, for whatever reason, to actually get to see what they are all about. And so um, they had the opportunity to get into the kayaks and kayak from, I would say, about, I think they kayaked about a mile or a little over a mile, maybe even 2 miles. But a great portion of this as well was because we just started our natural resources project that is based on a new section of a creek walk that was extended in the city of Syracuse on the south side of the Syracuse on the back side of a park called Kirk Park. And so these youth crew members here were the youth crew members that were stationed at those parks for the most part of the summer program. And so they got a chance to see different parts of the creek to see like what is the difference between an area that is not as saturated with people versus an area that is quite saturated with people. And yes, from what I heard, they greatly enjoyed it. So this is just one of those activities and one of those other, attempts in trying to expose our young people to the, like I said, the very resources that are in, their own neighborhood.
Sure. And there's been a good deal, I understand, of restoration of the creek. There's a
Yes,
bike path along the creek and
yes,
a very important amenity to Syracuse is this creek here.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. We actually just in the matter of, like I said, the summer of last year leading into the fall, we were able to remove. So our objective is to remove the invasive, what we call invasive species, or the undesirable species. Those things, weedy kind of like trees or plants that take up the good stuff. And so we remove those things to then replant more desirable and more healthy um, plants and trees, mainly trees. So we were just able to simply, plant a couple of hundred trees just from July, um, until November. I want to say we planted a good almost 300 trees in that nick of time.
Yeah, and almost any community has some kind of a resource, a natural resource, aside, of course, from human resources, but can bring the community together to enhance that natural place. It could be a creek, it could be a wooded area. We've got invasive species everywhere. So, and even some neighbors could put together some type of a project, even themselves too. But it's nice if you have an Earth Corps or have a city program that can empower neighbors to go out and enhance their neighborhoods. A lot of cities have volunteer programs too. Okay, let us go to this next picture here.
Yes, yes, yes. So this is pretty much what I did when I first came into the program as a youth crew member. Again, it's giving that environmental education to our younger people. The thing that you see on the table is what we call our Watershed Model. And it basically has a couple of bodies of water. You guys cannot see the big body of water, but you see the small little streams. You see the houses that we place, like a farm setting, kind of like a school setting with a parking lot, a bridge. Just kind of we use it as like a play source to um, show like the example of Syracuse, and we give basically a rundown to them of what the impact of litter, can have on our big source of body of water that I mentioned earlier, which is Onondaga Lake. And I shared the history with you guys of that lake, but we will take we'll get like say sprinkles for instance and just sprinkle it all over that watershed model just to like I said um use like as a example of litter, and then we'll take water, we'll fill it in a pail and just run it lightly all over the watershed model as an example of like a rainfall, a typical rainfall here. And they get to see where all of that litter, aka the sprinkles, go into, which ultimately will lead to the big body of water, which is like I said, we we say as an example of Onondaga Lake. And they get to see the importance of like not littering, the reasons why we shouldn't litter. We also use the example of, like I said, in the wintertime we have pretty decent winters, the salt impact that it may have. We just use a bunch of examples to just educate them on that, but kids really enjoy this, as we do have stick figures and things of that nature. So I always love this thing. It hasn't gotten old to me yet.
Yeah, I was really, when I saw this picture, I really like a model. And as you describe, a wonderful three-dimensional learning tool for not just kids, but for adults could learn a lot of this
Yes,
too.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to switch back to Yvonne, and we're going to go back to this picture here. We've seen this picture before, but oh, first of all, who's this right here?
So Alex was working with us as some office support, but before then he was actually part of the AmeriCorps program, working with us with Onondaga Earth Corps through the AmeriCorps program. So
Okay.
he came this event that you see with all the sponsors and supporters was an event that was held by home headquarters at Leavenworth Park and the surrounding neighborhoods. And Alex came to join us for that day to volunteer and do some cleanup at the park, but also around the neighborhoods surrounding, including tree planting, weeding, and all of those types of things. But
that's a good segue, because what I wanted to show this picture again is which both you and Tay have made reference to earlier, but who are the entities, who are your partners in the community? Probably the city to some degree, maybe some faith groups, maybe schools. Who do you work with? Who benefits by Onondaga Earth Corps? And when you're explaining that, is there a way that entities in the community can contact you and say, we have something here, like maybe we'd like to build some raised bed gardens like that earlier picture? How can people engage the Earth Corps for a need that they have?
Sure. So our partners vary from, people that we work with on our field projects all the way to volunteers who have projects that they would like us to either help them with or ask us to join them in their projects and so on. And we also have partners that provide resources as well. Tay mentioned earlier our personal development part of our program. And personal development is a huge, huge part of our program. It's, like we mentioned earlier, it's great to go out and do the work and be in the field and get your hands dirty and do all that stuff. But one of the things that we want folks to come out of our program with is a sense of empowerment and an understanding that they can take on tasks and create a life for themselves that could be better in a variety of ways. And that if that's just further education or finding a career as a next step or looking for some sort of financial stability, the personal development side is a huge portion of it. And Earthcore, as much as we provide support, can't cover all of the things that you might possibly need in life, period. So we look for partners that are able to provide those resources. They might be better equipped to provide guidance or mentorship. They might be better to provide advice for family and life and things like that. So we have partners that provide resources like that. And then we have partners that might be better suited for some of our project work. And I know one of our partners is here, or like that represents one of those groups is the OEI, which is the Onondaga Environmental Institute. Amy's here today, so I'm glad that she's able to make it. But the Onondaga Environmental Institute is one of those groups that we go to frequently to get information, to make sure that the education that we're providing is good information for the crew members that are joining us, and that we are able to provide, a way for the crew members to understand the environmental impacts that are happening in day-to-day life. So OEI is one partner that has been able to help us by providing the Watershed Model and explaining to us how the Watershed Model works. That is one place that we've got partners before. And you mentioned the city of Syracuse is a huge resource. Their parks department is an amazing partner with us. We have been able to provide a lot of resources just by connecting with the parks department and being able to have our crew members teach those folks who join into parks and rec activities and show them, about the trees, about the environment that they are, about the parks that they are staying in, and all the things that can benefit them by being in the parks. So the city of Syracuse is a huge, huge partner for sure. The Onondaga County as well is very, very important to our work. The county helps us a lot with our green infrastructure projects that are all over the place. The green infrastructure projects had a lot to do with something called Save the Rain project, and they're in charge of the Save the Rain project essentially, and we played a role in that project. But the Save the Rain project, again with the importance of water in this area, really helped the community by installing a lot of green infrastructure throughout the area, capturing rainwater, preventing it from overflowing and so on into our waterways. I'm not the best at talking about that type of work because it's not my it's not my specialty. Tay would probably know more about the actual GI work, but essentially that's another partner that we've had that has been just really awesome. Another symbol there that you might see is SHA, the Syracuse Housing Authority. Just at the third one from the bottom corner of that sign, SHA. They're also really awesome. They've provided a lot of stuff for us, and they have great connections in the community as well. And they've helped us recruit. They've helped us with our fleet. Great resource as well. You asked about how people might be able to connect with us. There's people always that we're always looking for, obviously, and people who have reached out to us to see what services they can help us with. And every time we do recruitment, we not only recruit crew members, but we also look for partners, or we look at existing partners to see what is possible there. And our open house events that we've been having is what that is. And it doesn't have to be local. If people are looking to partner with us and they're outside of the local area, we are also looking for that too. I think the outreach partnership could extend from just Syracuse to elsewhere. During those partner open houses, we kind of explore what each group or each organization might be able to provide, or if they are looking for someone like Onondaga Earth Corps, we can talk about those things, develop a relationship and an understanding of how things work, and then possibly come out of it with, with a way for us to connect and interact with each other. So our next Partners Open House is next month. I can't recall. I believe it's on March 10th from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. That's Eastern Standard Time. And, we just had one yesterday and it was really, really great. Like we were able to talk to individuals about possibly connecting, how we can work together this upcoming year. Last year was very, very tough. And I think for most organizations across the world, they really suffered a lot last year. And we were lucky to have really awesome partnerships with other groups and organizations that allowed us to run our program throughout the year. So we didn't slow down at all last year because we had great partnerships with people, great relationships with people. They came to us, we looked for them to be able to figure out, how do we keep this program running? Are we able to do it safely? And if we are, how many crew members can we take on where it's not, overwhelming or too much, or, where we're losing people in between somewhere. So without those partnerships, our program last year probably would not have gone the way it did. We probably would not have been able to run all of our seasons and take on the most number of crew members that we've ever taken on as an organization. So partnership, definitely extremely important. And also the relationship of that partnership is also very important to us too.
Yeah, that's good. Sure, it looks like a lot of partners, and I'm sure this is only some of them too. Yeah, building that community. Okay, I want to show another picture here, but before we get into this, I'd like to just give a little heads up that after we spend just a few minutes describing this picture here, I'm also going to want to know a little bit about the prospects of Joe Biden's Earth Corps. What might that mean to Syracuse? What might that mean to the nation? That's a really interesting issue, a really interesting topic. And then if we have any more time after that, I would like to just touch on this controversial circumstance there in Syracuse, Interstate 81, which was built back in the early 60s, right through the middle of a minority neighborhood, pretty much devastated that neighborhood. And now that highway has reached kind of the end of its life. What are they going to do with it? That hasn't been totally decided yet. Some want to have it removed and returned to the more or less pre-existing grid, or rebuild it so it is even bigger than it is now. So we want to try to get to that because that's a big issue in Syracuse, and it's a big issue that Onondaga Earth Corps would have a big interest in as well. But before we get to that, both Tay and Yvonne, Tay, why don't you start? What are we looking at here?
Yes, so you are looking at our fall youth crew from 2019. And you're also looking at our executive director, who is the gentleman who is kneeling with the red tie. Yes,
This
his
guy
name is
here.
Greg Michael. And I just want to give a shout out to him because he is such a great, selfless individual who reminds me daily. Um, to be the same, to do the same. And the young lady who was kneeling next to him, uh, her name is Kwan. She is our ex-youth coordinator, but she works with the organization Peace that I mentioned earlier. So she still helps very much so out in our process of like recruitment when it comes to youth or any other type of assistance that it is that we need from her. She's still there. I am glad that this picture actually popped up because in this moment it's like one of those moments. So our banquet, we have two sets of banquets. We have a banquet at the end of our summer program. As Yvonne mentioned earlier, is when we take on the bulk of our youth crew members. And our banquet typically takes place at the end of that program, which is like mid-August. But this banquet here is our annual Earth Corps Encore banquet that takes place every November, typically like the first week of November, first Saturday. Um, this was such a great transitional moment to watch all of these individuals. Although I am in charge of my group daily, we all as a staff play a hand in the development of all of our members as well as ourselves, uh, because we are also on a personal development journey as well. But the gentleman who is to on the right hand side with the ponytail and the gray suit, his name is Terrence. He, as I mentioned, was a youth crew member as of the fall of 2019, but returned to us in the spring of 2020 as a young adult and finished out the year as a young adult slash AmeriCorps member. And just watching the growth of him, um, he came into the program in the summer of 2018 as a youth crew member, and just watching his growth and watching his further interest, his level of extensive leadership is awesome. And like I said, the other individuals who are in the picture with him as well, also I saw growth in them as well. And that is the same for our young adults. We're not just out here. I really want to emphasize on the fact that we're not just out here, planting trees and doing the labor intensive work and, the beautification and, those type of things. But with every tree that is planted, best believe that we do plant a seed in these individuals and they play a big part and their development, there's themselves, but just watching that transitional period is just, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. I graduated to more advanced young adults this same um evening as well, and they were um awarded, for the graduation, and was giving their award by a great person within Syracuse, Rachel May, who is a great support of our program as well. And so this is just a moment of fun to where we like to celebrate our accomplishments of the year. Um, we like to celebrate each other. We like to celebrate partnership. And yes, this is what you're looking at. So with COVID, I'm not feeling it because we weren't able to have it, this last year. But I have hopes for something this year, even if it is virtual. And yes, beautiful people, great times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Lots of work to do and lots to celebrate as well. Yeah, I like that picture. So let's go forward here. As many people, particularly in the realm of conservation work, like Onondaga Earth Corps and Northwest Youth Corps, and I think uh, well over 100 other similar organizations all over the country, are kind of anticipating what is Joe Biden's Earth Corps going to look like. And I would be curious to hear from both you, Tay, and Yvonne. What kind of discussions have you had there at OEC? Certainly, you've been talking. Okay, what do you know? What don't you know? What are the prospects of an Earth Core or a climate core, and perhaps a surge of hopefully funding and a surge of more opportunity for more young people? Go
Yes,
ahead.
yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I definitely would like Yvonne to talk about this, but for sure, I mean, the more the merrier, and I feel like we definitely, have been doing good with what we've been working with, but for sure, I mean, if we had that extra source, financially, or just the matter of just a light, a bigger light being shed on us, you know, that would be tremendous. As I mentioned, we're not just making a change environmentally, but we're making a change in people. And the people, the young people, including myself, are the matter of the change within this world. And there's so much going on, but I feel like that would be tremendous. And listen, I have my hopes for the program. I see us as continuing to elevate and be some of the greatest here. But I am definitely going to pass it on to Yvonne so that she can definitely share.
Sure. So when the announcement of, Joe Biden making the announcement of what his idea of what a climate core could be came up, it was very exciting to hear, because what I didn't mention before was, during the history of Onondaga Earth Corps. Onondaga Earth Corps is based off of a lot of the methods that came from the CCC. So the original CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps. So a lot of how we are operating now comes from the model that was set by the CCC. So the idea that he would like to support and try to grow what they're calling the climate core is great. And one of the things that is also very great about it is that the Biden administration is looking at other conservation corps that are existing. And we are a part of something called the Core Network, which is a network of, I'm not even sure how many corps across the nation, but, could be, I'm not sure how many, but we're part of this network of conservation corps that are doing the work already, that benefits our climate. Tree planting, bringing carbon out of the air by installing gardens, by making the spaces more green. So having a climate core and focusing funds and focusing energy to establishing conservation corps, or supporting conservation corps that already exist, could be a huge boost. It brings on job opportunities for folks who may not have had the opportunities. I could tell you now that the majority of the folks who are in our program now probably would never have a lot of the opportunities that we are providing with them in terms of relationship to the environment. The way that they are growing up at the moment is, or before coming to the program, a lot of the times they're not establishing a relationship with the environment in a positive way. So they might look at a park and be like, maybe not go to the park, I can go somewhere else. But after the program, they might find the park as something peaceful that they can go to, that they can use those resources, and understand how the environment actually interacts with their lives, and then also the lives of the folks that are around them. So their families, their friends, their acquaintances. So the way the Onondaga Earth Corps is modeled, we bring in people to work these positions that allows them this relationship with the environment, with their community. And if we could support more corps that do that type of work already across the nation, these corps, a lot of them are already established and some are trying to grow. We can continue having these smaller groups or these large groups that that bring in young people and allow them to experience work and green work that not only benefits their own lives, but the communities around them, and then supports an infrastructure that makes sense for us to grow sustainably as a nation. So one significant part of having it come from, you know, the White House, from the Biden administration, is that it would be a federally supported work. It would be federally supported work. And why I say that's such a big part is because you can have all these corps come work individually, but together at the same time. You're not working in small groups just a little bit at a time, but you can kind of work as a larger entity happening all at the same time. And that's something that we need right now, especially if we're talking about climate work. The work needs to be done quickly, and you need a lot of hands in order to do it. And having a climate corps is one way to do that, to get a lot of hands, and a lot of hands from young people as part of it. Because, you know, as much as I love folks, the older folks, this planet belongs to the young people. And those are the people who are going to carry things over. So having a climate corps would be amazing. Having the support of the federal government would be amazing. And so I'm very excited to hear that he would like to support the climate corps, and I hope that he continues and does. And I hope that he's able to pull that through. I think it's very important to know that, you know, we are the folks that the federal government serves, right? And in order for us to have conservation corps, especially for those who are looking for federal funding, we have to encourage our governments to support these groups. So, you know, one thing that people can do is write in and say, like, we want this, we are interested in this, we'd like to see more of this. Not only to the federal side, but, you know, you can talk about it locally, build those relationships with your cities, your counties, even your state representatives, and tell them that this is what we want to hear from you. For those state representatives who go and serve in the federal government and you know, as House representatives or so on, you know, make sure that they know that this is part of the conversation that needs to be talked about. Climate work is extremely important, and it needs to be addressed in a large way. And I'm very interested to see how this rolls out, because if it can be done, it could mean, you know, hundreds of thousands of new jobs in a variety of ways, you know, between office work to field work and all the things in between to make conservation corps happen. It would bring those hands that everybody has kind of been looking for into the work itself.
Yeah, I want to underline really kind of all of that, Yvonne. You mentioned, I think extremely important, is for people to encourage, whether your thing is writing to your elected representative, or start having those conversations in your communities. I don't mean just Syracuse. That was a large part of the conversation I had with Jeff just a few days ago. What are the prospects of a surge in this kind of an opportunity, and how can communities be sort of prepared for this surge as it evolves, and be ready to welcome that surge and give it some direction instead of waiting until that point and then trying to figure it out. So to be some type of preparedness for the community players. How could we make the surge of young people more available to the community? The cities need to be having this conversation, whether they have a conservation corps type entity or not, or they need to find out who in the community is sort of the portal to this kind of climate corps surge, who can guide them. Like I see OEC would be probably something like that in Syracuse, and I think probably Jeff and Northwest Youth Corps would serve that function here as well. Other communities have their own resources, but this is totally perhaps unprecedented opportunity to address the big issues of the day. So let's just go a little bit longer, and this is actually kind of related. Let's talk a little bit, very briefly, because this issue is related to climate change. It is related to healthy communities. It is related to reducing our ecological footprints. I bring up this picture again, and this right here is Interstate 81 that goes through a substantial part of Syracuse. I don't see the scale of miles, but a good part of this is elevated, and it went right through this neighborhood, of course. So, Yvonne, we touched on this a little bit before we started our conversation, but very briefly, just a few minutes we want to spend on this, but it's a really important issue in Syracuse, and a lot of other cities are having to deal with this issue too. These massive freeways don't last forever. And of course, we're understanding that a lot of these massive freeways really weren't such a good idea. And of course, all the cars are a big part of climate change, et cetera. But in Syracuse, there is a community discussion, and even the New York Transportation Authority recommends taking this thing down and to some degree restoring the grid somewhat to the way it was before, but it could be done better than it was before. And there's a lot of issues. Gentrification is a big issue here too. But Yvonne, just give us a little bit of an idea of some of the discussions there. What are some of the opportunities for groups like the OEC if this were to be returned to a street level, grade level grid? This could be edible landscaping, it could be parks, it could be healthy, it could include affordable housing, it could make the neighborhood perhaps even better than it was, certainly better than it is right now. Go ahead, Yvonne.
Yeah, so the I-81, Interstate 81, as you can see, runs straight through, and it's a huge highway that runs straight through the city. And it definitely has caused a lot of impact on the community there. It has divided people. It is a physical barrier in the city. It's not fun to walk under. It is quite scary to walk under because you have a lot of blind spots. You have, just a massive, giant gray structure essentially that goes through the city, and it needs a lot of work. It's definitely not in its best shape. It's old now. It's past its engineered, age essentially. And the grid, community grid is what they're calling it, is the most preferred option to replace that interstate. So the community grid, what it would do, like you mentioned, is it would bring it down to the ground level. So you won't have that physical barrier and blind spot with all the columns and stuff in order to lift the interstate up. And in its place, it would allow for us to change our mode of transportation. So it could bring about a lot of ways for people to actually be able to walk around the city and not be afraid of what might be behind the other side, or if there's a car coming or something like that. It gives you that line of sight. And it also gives the opportunity for us to make the area greener. So it could mean planting more trees. It could mean new landscaping. Anytime you install any more asphalt or concrete, there's got to be some sort of green in order to offset the amount of runoff that can happen from impervious surfaces. So it's really important that the city itself and the state considers the need for green there, and the need for the community to have different ways to get around the city. It's definitely a project that has been going on for a very long time. It's been drawn on and on and on, and a bunch of different options were given, but the community grid itself has been kind of the ideal for most folks. for most folks in the city of Syracuse, that they feel that it's the best option that the city of Syracuse has. So in terms of like what Earth Corps might be able to do is we might be able to provide the some workers in order to install or maintain the green spaces that could possibly come in once the interstate is actually taken down. But yeah, very exciting. You know, the city of Syracuse itself has an urban forest master plan, and they are trying to increase the canopy in the city itself. So that could be one place for the city to increase its canopy. And I don't know if Tay has any comments on I-81, but it's kind of a short.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's leave the highway at that point with our time situation here. That's really interesting. Like I said, lots of other cities are looking at these kind of issues too. Transportation is a huge part of our lifestyle, certainly affects the way we design our cities. And from my opinion, a civilization based on automobiles is not looking like it was a very good choice for a lot of different reasons, but I'll leave it at that. So this has been an absolutely wonderful conversation. And again, we're going to continue this. We'll open this up afterwards so we can all talk with each other after this particular part of the conversation. I hope Jeff's still there. I saw Lois is there, Jim's there, several people involved with the conservation series. Bob may be still here. So that's what the purpose of this conversation series is to compare notes in different parts of the country and see what people are doing where they live. There's certainly a lot of overlap. We all have a lot of the same issues and we can learn from each other. That's kind of the reason for doing this, is to see how people in different parts of the country are addressing these issues, because the overall goal is, for me, to live within the boundaries of the natural world and bring out the best and positive human potential. And wow, we've had a nice visit with that today with Yvonne and with Tay.